Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the science of kimchi. We're going to go way beyond just a simple recipe and really understand the amazing, dynamic system of microbes and chemistry that creates that perfect, tangy, crunchy bite we all love. So here's the game plan. First, we're going to totally redefine what delicious even means for kimchi. Then, we'll break that down into 4 key pillars. After that, I'll show you the scientific levers you can actually pull to control them. We'll see it all come together in a super cool engineered recipe, and then, at the end, I'll hand the keys over to you so you can design your own perfect batch. All right, let's jump in. Okay, first things first, we've got to shift our thinking. Kimchi isn't just a food with one static taste. No, its deliciousness is a living, breathing process. It's a symphony of microbes and chemistry that's constantly changing over time. So what if delicious wasn't some final destination you arrive at? What if it's actually the journey itself? That's exactly how food scientists see it. They call it fermentation dynamics, and it's this idea that the taste you have on day 5 is just one single stop on this incredible, constantly evolving flavor map. So, how in the world do you map a journey like that? Well, luckily for us, researchers have already done the heavy lifting. After looking at more than 50 scientific studies, they've managed to deconstruct kimchi's deliciousness into 4 core pillars. This, right here, is our blueprint for engineering the perfect kimchi. And this framework makes it so clear. We're aiming for 4 things. First, aroma. You know, that balance between fresh, funky smells and sharp, sour ones. Then, taste. That beautiful dance between sour, savory, and sweet. Third, texture. We want that signature, satisfying crispness. And finally, stability, which is all about its ability to hit that peak flavor and just stay there without getting way too sour. Okay, so we know what we're aiming for, but how do we actually control those 4 pillars? Well, you can think of it like we have a master control panel. And on that panel, there are 3 main levers that food scientists use to manage the whole fermentation process. And here they are: temperature, salts, and ingredients. And that includes any specific microbial starters you might use. Honestly, mastering these 3 is the key. It's what takes you from just making kimchi to actually designing it. Let's break down each one. Temperature is without a doubt the most powerful lever you have. But it's not just a gas pedal, right? It doesn't just speed things up or slow them down. No, it's more like an orchestra conductor. It fundamentally changes the outcome by telling all the different groups of microbes when it's their turn to shine. You see, the temperature is what determines which microbial community is going to take over and thrive. That's why scientists have found that a 2-stage approach works so well. You start with a short, slightly warmer period to build up all those complex, beautiful aromas, and then you shift to a long, cold fermentation to lock it all in and keep it from getting too sour. It's a really clever trick. Next up, salt. And salt is so much more than just a seasoning. Think of it as the gatekeeper, or the bouncer at the club. It decides which microbes get a VIP pass to the fermentation party. And it is absolutely critical for getting that classic kimchi crunch. So salt is basically doing 2 huge jobs at once. First, it's a microbial selector. It creates the perfect environment for the good guys, the lactic acid bacteria, to thrive, while it kicks the undesirable microbes out. At the same time, it's working on texture. Through osmosis, it pulls water out of the cabbage, which is what keeps it so firm and crisp. This dual role is exactly why making a really good low-salt kimchi is such a scientific puzzle. And finally, we get to the ingredients and starters. So if temperature is our conductor and salt is the gatekeeper, then these guys, well, they're the artists. They're the ones who add all the unique character, from that deep, savory umami to a subtle, almost refreshing sweetness. This is where the real design work happens. It's so cool. Food scientists can add something like kombu to build a clean, savory depth. Or they can add pear puree, not just for its own sweetness, but as a specific fuel source for certain bacteria, like leuconostoc. And when those bacteria eat the pear sugars, they produce this amazing, refreshing, sweet-tasting compound called mannitol. It's literally targeted flavor creation. Okay, so we've covered a lot of theory. Now let's see how this all comes together in the real world. This isn't just another recipe. Think of it as a protocol, one that's been engineered from the ground up using these exact scientific principles. This finding from the research is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. What it's basically saying is that if you deliberately combine specific bacteria, you can actively steer the fermentation to produce more of the stuff you want, like that sweet mannitol, which directly leads to a product that people think tastes better. It's predictable and repeatable. And that exact principle is the foundation for a really innovative recipe that came out of all this research. It's specifically designed to be crispy, to be lower in salt, but still be absolutely packed with complex umami and that refreshing sweetness we were talking about. The process itself is totally engineered. You can see it right there in step 4. It uses that 2-stage fermentation we talked about. There's a short kickstart at room temp to get those aroma-producing microbes going, and then it goes into a long, slow fermentation in the cold to build those deep, complex, and really stable flavors over time. And this comparison just shows the science in action so perfectly. In the traditional approach, you rely heavily on salt and fish sauce, but in the engineered approach, you can lower the salt and use something like kombu for a clean umami boost. Instead of just hoping for a little sweetness, you add pear puree as a targeted fuel to create mannitol. Even adding things like green tea and yuzu, those are chosen specifically to tweak the acidity and add these amazing aromatic layers. It is 100% flavor by design. So what does this all mean for you in your kitchen? Well, it means you can stop being just a cook who follows steps and start being a designer who controls a whole system. You've literally got the control panel right at your fingertips. You just have to remember that delicious kimchi is never an accident. It's always the result of controlled, deliberate inputs. So you want it a little sweeter and less sour? Okay, add a sugar source like pear and make sure you're fermenting it nice and cold. You want more complex aromas? Try slightly warmer but shorter initial stage. For extra crunch, be super precise with your salt. This is your toolkit. You can design the exact flavor profile you're looking for. This way of thinking totally transforms cooking. It's not about just following steps anymore. It's about truly understanding a system. Now that you know the science behind the taste, how temperature conducts the microbial orchestra, how salt guards the gate, and how all the different ingredients are the artists that paint the final picture, what masterpiece will you create next?